Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Our current session focuses on suggested approaches to listening practice. I hope and expect by the end of this session, you would have some know-how of the approaches that are suggested when it comes to listening practice. Well, my dear students, simply relying on teachers' instruction in the classroom is not sufficient to improve one's listening competence, and especially when it comes to L2 or when it comes to a foreign language, teachers' instruction is not enough, and there need to be various other suggestions in this regard. There are three approaches that are suggested in this context. Number one is narrow listening, number two is repeated listening, and number three is reading while listening. We will discuss them one by one. Narrow listening is originated from narrow reading, and it has been found very, very helpful and useful for language acquisition as far as Crescent 1981's view is concerned. Learners focus on the topic, that is, if the topic is weather or sports or any other topic, or one author, or one particular, for example, novel or whatsoever. So, a great deal of listening in that particular area becomes important. So the main idea behind narrow listening is that instead of being introduced to general, a lot of areas of listening, when it is narrowed down to one topic, one area, one author, one novel, one particular kind of text, one genre, etc., this limiting it to one type in some ways helps the listeners to develop their listening comprehension. This approach is suitable for learners across all the proficiencies. It can be applied in various contexts of teaching and learning, listening comprehension. As far as the second approach towards listening is concerned, that is repeated listening. It also derives its significant aspects from L1 source, that is repeated reading of that. Repeated reading is one of the most common methods that is used for the development of reading fluency. And in fact, on the same pattern, it was developed by Samuels 1979 as a pedagogical application to use, this L1 readers, reading ability for the development of their listening activity as well. And this can be replicated when it comes to L2 listening as well. The theory underlying repeated reading is to make word decoding more efficient through repeated practice of reading, and the same process of repeated input to the listening of the same activity. I think this can be helpful, in making the listener comfortable with that particular text, and B, or consequently, I would say, enabling more understanding or comprehension through the repeated exposure to the same text. There can be certain tips that can be used for that. For example, shorter texts are more suitable than longer texts because they have to be repeated, again and again. Learners can download the software Audacity, and the software is free, and it can use the listeners can use it. It can help them to adjust to the speech rate, to the speed of speech. This particular software controls that. So, the listeners can listen to any text on their the speed of their own comfort level. As far as simultaneous reading and listening are concerned, they are also termed as reading while listening. It can help beginners learn, to develop awareness of form and meaning relationships and word recognition skills during a process where while they are reading something, they are listening to it. So, the exposure to the text or the input is coming in two ways simultaneously, that is through reading and through listening as well. So overall, I would say that all these three approaches, depending upon the nature of the listening comprehension that is required to be taught, and depending upon the needs as well as the background of the L2 learners of listening skills, the choices can be made out of all these approaches, based on these approaches that I have talked about.